Today, I'm very pleased to bring to you a casual conversation that I had with Raul Montero of Catch LISK. He is a strong advocate for the unnamed, those without voices, our Jane Does and John Does, and also for the missing and unsolved cases throughout our country. Well, let's hear him tell us how he got into this and what we can do to aid his efforts. Good morning, Raul. It's so nice to have you here.
Good morning.
Tell us what you're doing out here on the socials. This is your name that you go by, right? Catch LISK?
Catch LISK,
and
yeah.
That's primarily on X. I see you.
Yeah, I'm everywhere as Catch LISK. My personal Facebook page has my name, which is Raul Montero, and that's fine. But yeah, everywhere on social media, I'm known as Catch LISK.
I wanted to talk to you about some of the fantastic work that you were doing that you may see, like I'm one of your stalkers for retweet. I'll just confess to the audience right here that I retweet you regularly on Missing Monday and Facts Tuesdays that you do for all your the way I would say a voice for those that don't have one, the unidentified Jane Does and John Does, and the also cold cases, really old unsolved cases, all of the bulletins and all of the contact information, and you do it really good job, if I might say so myself.
So, thank you. Yeah, I think it's important. There's so many cases that I feel close to. It would take 9 days a week, 29 hours a day to post them all. The ones that I do post on Mondays and Tuesdays are particularly close to me and have meaning and relevance to not only family members, but these are cases that I'm more invested in, and it makes me uncomfortable to say more one case over another because they're very dear to me. But these are the cases that mean extra something special to me, and being committed to pushing awareness for these cases, these people, whether they're missing or unidentified, or it's an unresolved murder, or some underlying important theme like true justice. I think it's important that I highlight it. I had always wanted to just stay in a lane, like the Gilgo lane, which is pretty much the origins of who I am in the advocacy space. But when you get to a certain level, I don't know if that's the right word, but when you get to a certain level, people reach out to you for help. And saying no is something I'm not capable of. And, there are cases like the one behind me here, the Dawn Michelle Holt case. I got close to that case because we were searching for Fire Island Jane Doe, and Dawn's missing date was right around the time when Fire Island Jane Doe was discovered. So it's LISK or Gilgo related, but it turned out the dates were slightly off, and Dawn's case needed some attention. And once I speak to a family member, I'm committed. With Dawn's case, we've done more in the span of 2-3 years on many fronts than had been done in 28 years that Dawn's been missing. So, it's for me, it's more than a mystery, which might be appealing on a very superficial level, like something mysterious and uncovering information and, scraping the internet for any tidbit of info. But it quickly, almost instantly, and now it just happens automatically, that I just become so committed to the surviving family members, or in Jane Doe cases, to that Doe themselves. And, whether it was Fire Island Jane Doe, who's now Karen Vagata, Jane Doe number 6, who's now Valerie Mack, the Does that I post on Tuesdays, I'm very, very close to, and there are
Mm-hmm.
other does that I am even more closer to, but I cannot really post any pictures because they're post-mortem pictures unless I put a trigger warning or a disclaimer or blur out the picture, which I would like to do, but
Right.
people click it out of curiosity, and it's still an unsettling image,
Right.
especially in
And
tandem.
also, dignity, the family and all, they want the information out there, but it's a fine balance.
Yeah, it's hard with a Jane Doe or a John Doe because we don't know who the family is.
Yeah.
But
but it would be out there for later, like
exactly.
Children, family, anyone who was left behind. So I get that concern. Plus, like having the information stalled by some platforms, guidelines, or people misusing the information, which happens all the time.
Yeah,
so
that's how you evolve from just a curiosity into something more significant. I've always been interested in mysteries. I hate using the phrase true crime, but it is the blanket title for the genre. I always do things deeper,
right.
and I look for the community within a genre.
I can understand that because like I too, you get like this tightening in your throat when we say true crime sometimes. Yeah. There are so many versions of what that actually means out here and how people do it. And I just I want people to understand that just that label alone doesn't mean you do it this way or that way, because I have seen you be extremely respectful and do it in a way that is so considerate. Like you said, you wear that title of advocate for the victims' families, for the victims that cannot speak for themselves, with great dignity and seriousness. Like I've seen you take people to task for it, for not trying to be rude to them, but just I myself, guilty of using a mugshot in not knowing there were other pictures available that were more dignity. And then when you learn that lesson, taking it to heart, just that thing of not thinking about it that could cause harm to the families is right. I took that lesson to heart, immediately. And I hope others did too. It's hard with, the mass media who is actually just doing things so quickly and looking for sensationalism. I don't often think that's their priority, unless, of course, the family's the interview,
Yeah, I mean, and I think that what's ironic is, I've always made the stance of dignifying a victim. So if we look at just the Gilgo victims, it's always been about better pictures representing happier moments of their lives. It's not to say that a mugshot isn't an important.
And it's tough because in that case, just for anybody who's not listening, that's the Long Island serial case with Rex Harriman. And unfortunately, he targeted young women who may have been in the sex business, and that kind of made them sensationalized for that. But it was part of the case, and it's a fine line. You don't want to hurt the families, and you don't want to be putting somebody's worst day out there repeatedly as if that's all that represents them. When I think of the families, that's what I think of. That's what they would want from me.
Yeah, and I think, listening to the victim impact statements that the Gilgo families gave on sentencing day, several of them mentioned how the media is harmful with mugshots, with descriptors. They don't say, introduce somebody's name and in the same sentence what they were doing in life. I mean, unless you're a doctor and you're introduced as Dr. So-and-so. But with these girls, it was always the name followed by sex worker. And, they were so much more than that. It is really just a very small, important, but small facet of their lives. And those descriptors are something I fought for years, changing the phrases, calling them prostitutes or hookers. Those are offensive, and it's hurtful and demeaning, and it lessens the impact of their murders. and sensationalizes it. And from a media perspective, they know the word prostitute or hooker is going to get, a second glance, whereas just a name, 25 years old, whatever, is not going to be enough. And you double down on that if you're media with a mugshot that shows someone's just most terrible day other than their murder, and it just creates this atmosphere of, ooh, I want to read this because it's got all the salacious things that are appealing to me as a true crime consumer. But I fought that for years and years and years, and I still do.
I know. And to be honest, there is a way to do it. I mean, it is effective, the case, right? It is in his profile, so to speak. It's in helping to determine who could actually, when the investigation was going on, who might have access to that group. But then when you finally have the victim, there's a way to put it. Like, can you not also say mother of 3, daughter, studying for nursing, legal assistant, whatever else that they were? Can you balance it a little bit?
It comes down to laziness from the mainstream media. They have requirements that they need to do. They need to ensure that the pictures are truly public domain, that there isn't copyright, that they have permission. But what bothered me so much leading up to the sentencing day was, like, from the arrest to the sentencing day, there's 3 years that any media outlet could have followed whatever protocol there is, requested officially sanctioned pictures of a victim. They did not have to choose a mugshot. Mugshots are public access. You can post it. It's within the free reign of the media. But you can't have a media personality standing, in front of a green screen and a microphone talking about empathy for the victims when behind you is a mugshot. You just can't do it. And I will call people out on that. What was interesting was that, even a week to 10 days before the guilty plea, and then again a week before the sentencing, I publicly posted warnings. Do not post mugshots. And I did put out a threat. I will come at you. I will call you out publicly. I will call your network out publicly. And granted, I don't have millions of people following me. I'm probably a smaller, larger platform, but I'm singularly unique in the Gilgo space.
You are, definitely. And I would say it's a diligent voice in one that people respect.
Right. Yes. And that's why, I wanted them to heed the warning because it's just disrespectful. So
I heard you. I saw many small creators hear you.
Well, the ethical ones, the ones that do care, the one that I called out first has unfollowed me and refuses to engage. And I don't care. I'm not in it for...
You weren't looking it for their accolades. You were looking for changed behavior. I know.
And it's have an awareness of the behavior, because do I believe you're empathetic towards the victims and their families? Yes, I do. But if you are not, if you go back after I call you out and talk to people and say how I went on, like they've gone back to their network producers and everything and flipped out and then made sure that every mugshot was there. Well, you could have invested that energy a week before, a month before, a year before.
And yet grateful they did, because maybe moving forward, that particular network will be more considerate, because that had to be a lot of hard work. Who wants to do that?
Yeah, right? But that's what you have interns for. They always blame the intern. They blame the staff, but they don't challenge or charge the staff to be proactive about it. And that to me is the laziness of the mainstream media. I'm not necessarily attacking the newscaster or the person on TV for a segment. But if your face is the face representing the Gilgo case for your network, then you need to come correct.
Yeah, it's hard because you're attacking the process. You're
Yeah.
attacking the process and the damage that it does. And
Yeah.
if they are actually representing that process for their company,
Yeah.
unfortunately, they're where it lands
Yeah,
first.
and nobody's
You know?
perfect. Even Newsday, who is so close to the case, even on sentencing day, in one of their article video segments, they did show a mugshot of Valerie Mack. And the second I saw that, because I see everything, I reached out to several contacts, and I can tell you honestly, within 3 minutes, that was taken down. That's
Wow.
what
You
it
know
takes.
what? Now that's true advocacy. That's what I mean about diligence and a respected voice. Newsday, would you admit, is 100 times larger than you, maybe 1,000 times
Yeah.
larger than you, with bigger reach, especially in our area. We're both East Coast here in the United States. LISK, for anybody, that means Long Island serial killer. Is that where you actually started?
So I have lived and worked in Brooklyn and in New York City. I lived on Long Island. I lived 10 minutes away from Gilgo Beach. I've been to Gilgo Beach as a kid. For me, it was proximity. It was the mystery. It was the disappearance of Shannon Gilbert. It was the recollection of seeing Peach's tattoo, it was Tanya Denise Jackson, seeing that tattoo in the Post in '97. You just bookmark all of these curious moments. And then with the discovery of the Gilgo Four, Maureen, Melissa, Megan, and Amber, you realize, oh my God, this is all connected in some way. So I got drawn to Gilgo because of a curiosity and interest in, the psychopathy of serial killers and evil people. That quickly faded away as I invested the time to really learn about the victims. And because I joined several Facebook groups, I heard from the victims' families themselves, in posts or comments. And for me, I began tracking rumors and allegations versus facts and family statements, and documenting that, on 1,000 different spreadsheets. And I quickly realized that, one, I saw these victims for who they were, and I saw their families for who they were. I sort of juxtaposed that against my own families and how I always use this phrase, perfectly imperfect we all are as human beings. And no one should judge anybody because of imperfections in a family dynamic or socioeconomic environment or racial or anything for that matter. So
in the end, they didn't deserve anything that happened to them, regardless of what was going on, regardless of what they did for a living, what was going on in their family life.
Yeah.
They deserve to still be here.
Yeah, and that's how it just evolved from that. And honestly, it went from 0 to a trillion rather quickly. I look back, and I've done a lot of retrospection in this past year, and I look back, and there were people that cared, there were people that posted or commented, but there was a lot of absence of attention, the right attention. Nobody was honoring or memorializing, a victim's birthday or their angel date, the day that they were found or died. And I decided to do that. I didn't ask anyone's permission. I just assumed the responsibility of doing it. So I recorded birthday dates, angel dates, any other important date. And as I got, I sort of snuck in, if you will, into this space and would post them. I would stand for them. I would honor them as people. And
that must have been so good for families to see, especially in the unsolved cases or in cases that are still going on, or not knowing what actually happened to their loved one. Or
Yeah, and it's
just
hard because we would my posts on like birthdays or Memorial Days, they weren't about rehashing whatever facts or rumors there were in the case. It was just honoring them because it's their birthday, or this was the
mhm,
day that they died or were found. So we should just pause for a moment and reflect on that. We don't have to
right.
talk about every iota piece of information about the case because this isn't the day for that. Then I got closer. I got responses from family members. I was shared things that I asked for permission to reshare, even though they were already sort of public. I asked permission to do things, which I didn't have to do, but I did.
That
Just on.
speaks volumes right there, because even though you know it's public, you're showing that
Yeah.
just by sharing it, somebody may feel a certain way about it, and you want to know about that ahead of time.
Yeah, I always looked at. So when I was 22, my brother, who was 11 months younger than me, died suddenly. It was It was a boating accident, and it was traumatic. And I look at my healing process, which was not linear. It was all disjointed. But I had a possessive attitude about the legacy of my brother, even among my family members. Like, my brother was mine. He was more of my brother
Right.
than he was my mother's son. Like, I just took possession of his legacy and everything. And he was my brother above all others. So I always applied respect to a family member that I'm going to post about. And like I said in the beginning, I didn't ask. It would be what, Jessica Taylor's birthday, so I'm gonna send her,
Right.
post something memorial for her birthday, and that's it. And those initiatives get you close to family members. Not that that was my plan. I felt I wanted to memorialize them. And then when you get more information, or like in Maureen Brainerd Barnes's case, I knew that she had written a poem. It was sort of published or put out there publicly, but I asked for permission if I could post her poem and speak about it briefly. And I met instantly with a yes, oh my God, thank you. So, it's little things like that whether you, and I never intended it, but you form relationships with family members.
Right.
But they also, while protective of their loved one's legacy, they understand when someone is displaying authentic intentions. Even with the families, and I'm very, very close with them. To this day, I mean, I sort of demean or humble myself perhaps more than I ought to, according to them. But being entrusted to speak about their loved one when they themselves couldn't do it for any
Right.
emotional reason, couldn't do it, to fight a troll or whatever, or to argue a rumor versus a fact. I was willing and willing to get in the mud on that, and
Yes.
I knew I had the facts to support it because I had done years and years of research prior to that. That's how you go from an interest in a crime and an interest in a serial killer or an offender to really understanding, seeing, or trying to understand, but seeing a victim for who they were and who they wanted to be, or they aspired to be, and you carry their legacy on. For me, I carried those legacies on my shoulder, and I always said, I'm sure you've seen it a million times, like, now the victims go back to belonging exclusively to their loved ones, to the families. And I think that's important to do because we're collectively taking, the wheelbarrow up the hill. And once we get to the hill, like, my work is done. My care is not done. My love, my devotion, my empathy isn't done. But even with Gilgo, after sentencing, being asked by the families, would you be interested in continuing to help us challenge what's known here colloquially as the Son of Sam laws? I would be honored to do that. And you know, their response was, thank you. It's a long haul. And for you, meaning for me, to be committed to it beyond the sentencing just shows the work that I've done on their behalf.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I became aware of the petition, you know, through some of the family sites and through your own, that the law in New York especially needs to be changed, especially in specifically in regards to what happened in the Harriman case, because they became divorced. She's now an ex. She's approached by larger media and making money. Yeah. And because of the loophole in the Son of Sam law here, didn't have to get reported. So they had no access to get it frozen, to be able to go after the money civilly, as is the law is set up to do. Atrocious, right? But then again, the process is stalled, from what I understand, because it didn't.
We're out of session right now, so
so it has to come next year again into session.
Yeah, the session begins in January. So the way the law is right now in New York, because New York was the originating state for this with David Berkowitz.
because of Berkowitz. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And it passed in New York, and then it was deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court.
That happened in what, 99 or something like that, or 97?
It was overarching, and they needed it to be limited. So right now, the way it stands is an accused or a convicted criminal cannot profit off of their crimes. They can't write a book for profit. They can't sell their story. But there is nothing on the books about family members or third parties. And third parties is broad. It encapsulates, you know, books and documentarians producing film about it, movies. I mean, we can look at, in today's landscape, YouTubers, podcasters, anything. And the initial push to close the Son of Sam law in New York still didn't target books, documentaries.
It didn't target the larger media push for this, and it didn't actually add in like clauses that would say you have to actually do some kickback to the actually involved other parties.
I think with Gilgo, there's a lot of catalysts. So what was an affront and an insult to the family members was the Peacock documentary. But it wasn't just singularly that. It was the murderabilia of items belonging to Rex Heuermann being put up for sale. You know, the Jeep, where this third party was talking, you know, the initial listing for it talked about accused serial killer out in Long Island. Like, it's sensational. And it's harmful, and that kind of verbiage needs to be held accountable. And you know, where we're at now is you can't really restrict free speech. And the way the law stands now is that the Heuermann family can do what they're doing, which is documentaries, a book deal, you know, live scripted television show, whatever that's going to look like with Peacock. But it was just abhorrent, like the hunting outfit that Rex was in the marsh between two separate victims. It's just, you know, I coined the phrase true grime, and it's true grime.
I would say that the pushback, you see, in a capitalist country, with the Constitution, of course, with free speech, it's going to be really hard to push on it. You know, but like, praise to the pushback, to the common person out here, to advocates like yourself, because we have an assembly bill and a Senate bill.
Son of Sam laws are, you know, it's 7 years old. It's a different landscape than it was 2-3 decades ago. There is the internet. There is
The majority of states automatically attach it to convictions, correct? Like I just saw in the Clenny case, it automatically got attached in Florida. And the attorney for that, the defense attorney for that case actually spoke up and said, we're going to appeal that particular portion of this conviction on constitutional grounds. And there's a lot of constitutional pushback on it. And I think it's a simple compromise. I mean, it's kind of, for me, it doesn't make any sense for them all to come to the table and compromise on it. What you need is just to involve the other parties, not just make it out here on your own. If it's going to be about the case and what happened, it involves the families of the victims, at least for the public, at least for those of us that see the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a bigger picture. You can't just compartmentalize it and make all your money and not care about anybody else, not with extreme pushback. And that's what I'm happy to see the community doing. I'm sure you see it. You hear about it more than I do. I'm a little there.
But, and we have plans. So as I said a little while ago, we're in between sessions in New York State. So the next session begins in January. Sessions run from January to June, and we're actively working. The Gilgo committee that I'm a part of with the families. We're working with state senators and assembly people. There's an agenda and an action plan. We already have cultivated a list of high-profile supporters, which we will actively share as we get closer to the launch of the session. And I'm not going to share right now what the drive will be, but it won't touch the existing Son of Sam law as it stands, because there is freedom of speech. But we're looking at effective alternative accountability.
How can others support that? Is there a way? I mean, will we be able to share a link to, as what happened with the Assembly and the Senate law, for a petition to get it out? I mean, if there's anything you can share with me, I'd love to share it.
Yeah, once I started this initiative, with the blessing of the families, I actually really implored them to let me begin between the announcement of the guilty plea date and then the ultimate sentencing date. I wanted to get this information out there just to begin to build a foundation of public awareness for this. And in a way, show the intent of where Gilgo ought to head after sentencing. And like, it shouldn't, I wanted the Gilgo law, as it was called then, to be important, to fill a space where nobody was talking about the offender, and we had an opportunity to talk about this. And then, of course, sentencing comes and the victim impact statements, and that sort of dominates the every highlight reel of the media for weeks and months on end to this day. And there'll be a lull again. And during that lull, I have some initiatives to begin to put out there again. But with the reconvening of the legislative session in New York in January, that's when all of our planning, all of our action plans really, really activate. And like, we pivot in the moment because we wanted to ensure inclusivity of not only the Gilgo families at large, but really just identify what's going to be the most effective way to impact change in New York State. And conversely, on the other, in Ohio, I believe it is the case of Dom and Darian in the so-called crash and their pursuit for Dom's law, which is also an attack on the Son of Sam laws there. And that particularly targets online bloggers and TikTok and all of that. That's a lane on the same freeway that we're on.
Right, but it's more like anyone for profit discussing all of this without contribution to the parties involved. And that's what I'm talking about, compromise. How hard is that? Like, how hard is that to do? That should be a reasonable conversation we're all willing to have.
We have to understand, like, my advocacy has brought me into friendships with people I never would have considered in my previous life. Like, I was very proud to call Kerry Rawson a very dear friend for a long, long time. And her insight as the daughter, as the child of a serial killer, helped me to understand and offer empathy to at least Rex's daughter, Victoria.
Right.
For me, actions dictate the quantity and depth of my empathy. But then again, you know, when you look at their lives are fundamentally destroyed, how are they going to survive? True. You know, so there has to be,
in a way, they're victims also, because
indeed. But they shouldn't be. We're not saying they can't write a book or tell their story. They have every right to tell their story. They have every right to write a book relevant to their life with a serial killer or an offender. But there are certain components of that cannot be discussed without discussing the victims.
Right. And once those discussions about those victims is happening, in the way I look at it, you can clarify like how you're looking at it, but I'm not necessarily blaming the Heuermann family because they're also in tragedy. I'm blaming mass media that totally disregards the family's share in this story.
People, you know, what's interesting about the public, and this will tie into where like trolls and stuff, but you know, when I started posting about the Gilgo committee, people were coming at me or countering, which I don't mind countering opinions. I enjoy that. It helps me to understand different perspectives on a broad level. So when I'm hearing you want to take they got $1 million, and there's people that are disgusted that they got $1 million, and there's people that say that we want to take their $1 million away from them. No, why are we focusing on the Heuermanns? Let's say they did get $1 million. The issue isn't that them getting $1 million. The issue is Peacock and how much they're making, or G Unit, the production company, and how much they're making. Like this is where the opportunity is, this is where the obligation is, and this is where the accountability is for those companies that are raking in many more millions than what Asa had gotten. And that's where a logical sharing of that ought to go to the victims.
Exactly. If I understand, I think we're saying the same thing. Just a little bit of responsibility and accountability. Like it is a for-profit company. We know that. They have a right to produce media. It's what they do. And they got to make money. They've got people to pay. I get it. The victims' families should not be excluded from those conversations when they're having these contract deals. Like, you know, if the accused's family is giving the interviews and all, maybe they get a bigger share, but there should be, because it is their story too, there should be some from the top accountability on bringing in all of the parties somehow.
So there's the obligation that's existing already in the current Son of Sam law, that there's an obligation of, I'm just going to use
it's like 10,000. If they pay anyone 10,000, they've got to let the victim, the OVS, know. And then that money gets frozen until but then here's the part I have a problem with. The families or the victims say there isn't a live victim in some tragic case like that, have to civilly sue and make a case to get any part of that. And that doesn't seem fair to me. There's something wrong with the process there.
Yeah, there's some nuance because, you know, under the existing law, the selling of family rights, certain family rights, ought to trigger the Son of Sam law in New York. Now, we know that Asa Heuermann, Rex's ex-wife, had signed over some family rights. That ought to trigger the law on the surface. There's some specificity to that. So I'll let the legal bookworm tackle that. But these are the things, the opportunities for an enhanced not an amendment to the Gilgo law, because that won't work, but introduction of other possible bills could focus on. And that's where right now on the legislative side, that's all being argued out and articulated and clarified, whereas on my end, our end, we just want to keep that concept going out there. Like, we just want to make sure, I don't want to have to introduce in January this Gilgo initiative. So putting it out there, getting, all the little things together, like the Facebook group that we have for the Gilgo committee, and logos, banners, things, preparing for what I'm anticipating is a very public stance, whether it's a meet and greet in Albany, New York, with family members or representatives of such, whether it's an agenda of understanding who the victims were and the marginalized segment of the community that they were in, all the battles that the families have had to fight in order to get justice. And then once justice happens, what do we do about improving the system or mitigating opportunities or loopholes in the system that leave other families and other victims in the future at risk, and so that they don't have to fight as hard.
Exactly. So it's important now, even though they're not voting on it, like it didn't make it to the vote, even though the governor can't sign it before December this year because it didn't get to them. It's still important. We've still got it. Those links are going to be important to those groups, to how to push it. We're going to share them, and everybody who's interested in this, feel free. I think we've talked about this before, Raul. Feel free to share it on your platforms, on whatever. Because it's not, if we don't keep the conversation going, it won't have the momentum in January and have committee members behind it to speak for it.
Exactly. Like, if you live in New York, you should be, and you can find it, it's pinned to my X profile. There's a whole document of links. So you can find your local legislator, your assembly person, your state senator. And what you could do now is write. I have sample email scripts you can call. I have sample phone call scripts. And just let your local legislator know that, hey, this is important to me. And you can help by just even reaching out at that point. Like, they record that, they document it, and they know if they have a public upswell of care about the release.
If you're an American, it's the volume that matters. Like, even if you make the most sense possible and it's the best thing that could happen, if the volume and the push isn't there in numbers, it could get just pushed aside for something else. And that's why it's so important. That's why I wanted to do this, because it is if you think that you're actually contacting them, you're just one person. No, that one person times 1,000, that 2 minutes you take for that email is going to add up, and it's going to add up starting like now as we go into the next bill. I'm not even from New York, I'm from New Jersey. But what I understand about this issue is that if we get this in New York, and I say we, like in everybody who just feels like it should happen, I'm not speaking for the world here. I'm just like common issue, common grievance about it, like, common desire for the change, I
had a lot of people going, how can I help? But I don't live in New York. I'm like, you could still email.
No, you can email. Because if it passes in New York, it will set precedent for it's easier to pass in other states. Agreed. Because son of Sam laws exist in almost all of the states now. So it is important if we can get it here, then in another state can get it there, and another person like yourself can have that initiative to, when they're pushing stronger, and they can use it as the precedent, and it just gets, and it snowballs. Like, it's not meaningless. It's not meaningless just because you can't vote on it because you're not in New York, just because it's not your senator. It's the issue that matters. They need to see a strong presence for the issue, because then maybe other states will start to take notice. Maybe, dare I say, maybe larger media would take notice that actually people are paying attention and would like to see people doing just slightly better. At least
we
try.
have plans for that. We had some local, like CBS News, Carolyn Gussoff, immediately drawn to it. She saw my initial Instagram posts on it and had reached out to me. And I ultimately connected her with two of the family members. And they both did. One of them did the interview with her, which was, it was posted and published. It's a short, brief interview, but that's okay.
But it was well done and careful, and it was considerate. And
so we're doing incremental appearances and statements, and knowing that beginning in January it becomes a lot again. So in a way, this is a respite for the families. They've just gotten through sentencing. Let them have half a year at least to come together as their own little nuclear family unit and find paths forward, process, so many years and in many cases, decades of ambiguous loss, and give them a bit of a chance to heal a little bit. And then, as they get ready to roll their sleeves up to fight in January, then they'll have they'll certainly have support, but they'll have rejuvenated energy, wells to pull from. And, that's where I believe early or late last year, I started questioning the evolution of Catch LISK and my role in things. I knew I would never, ever let go of Gilgo, but I had to let go of Gilgo to some degree, even though it would never leave me. And
well, there's still so many unidentified. There's so many still unprosecuted.
That'll always be my path forward because of the map and everything that I do. So that advocacy isn't ever going to go away, but I needed to let it go a little bit. And this being asked to help with advancing the Gilgo Committee, the Gilgo Law, just seemed to me to be the next facet, the evolution of advocacy. So I'm blessed and I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to fight for, and now alongside the family members. I think it's an honor that few people get, and it's humbling for me. It's something I never had envisioned or planned or worked towards. It's organic, and that's how it's authentic.
And it is authentic. You're very diligent. You do it very, very well. Like I said, I can only retweet. I can't even comment on it because it's done so well the way you do it. And so I'd like to transition now into actually the other part of what you're doing, because it's not just Gilgo. You are huge in the unidentified, in the unsolved. You're doing the missing people, cases that nobody's talking about because there's not any real movement. They're older, and you're making a point of still putting that out there on a regular, consistent basis with details, with help numbers. What is the best way for others to help you do that?
I think it's important to, at the most easiest, fastest, simplest level, is to repost. Posting flyers is so important because you never know who may see it. And I'll try to shorten this story a bit because I know I'm long-winded. A few years ago, I saw, because I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, in missing and murdered and unidentified people. And there was one Facebook group, Missing Black People was the name of the Facebook group. And I saw a picture of a girl who, reading the story, she was, and I'll abbreviate it, she was 16 years old, missing from Harlem, New York, 1982. Police wouldn't help. They wouldn't take the report. She's a teenager. She'll come back when she's ready. 42 years later, she never came back. The family reignited an effort to find her, and they went back to the precinct, and they were told that it's a cold case. Basically, there's nothing that they can do. And I read this in a Facebook group, and I was livid. I spent many years in Harlem. I love that community. I love the cultures. I love the family aspect of it. It's a beautiful environment. It's not safe. There are worse places. But it meant something to me again because proximity and all of that. So I tried to reply and reach out to those family members through that comment section of that post. I wasn't getting anywhere, but at the same time, I couldn't think of anything else. The missing girl's name was Stacy Reddish, and I couldn't get her out of my head. I don't like to use the word obsessed, but I just couldn't get her out of my head.
Well, it's hard to deal with the fact that no one's doing anything.
And I was
not that the family's not, but like no one's helping them. Like they have no other.
And nobody was. That's what was so insulting to me. And I was already catch LISK by this time, and and I had a larger band of contacts and insight. So I reached out. I finally connected with the sister of Stacy Reddish. And, we planned a half-hour phone call that turned into 4 hours. And, then it became how I leveraged the map that I have, which has all of the unidentified in the United States on it already, and all but 5 states left of the missing. And, I keyed into who I believe Stacy Reddish might be. And that was a Jane Doe on the scope of the LISK case, the Gilgo case. And, we had to go through, first we had to get Stacy an official missing persons report. So I called myself, Missing Persons Squad, and I'm not, they're not fans of me at all because I fight and I'm relentless. Cold Case Squad, I leveraged several other contacts, and then I leveraged the fact that the doe in question was found in proximity to where Rex Heuermann had worked at one point. So it sort of had, a LISK element to it. And what ultimately happened was partnering with Stacy's sister, setting up a free submission of the family's DNA to the OCME, Office of the Medical Examiner in New York City. They collected her DNA for free. Then we got the official police report. We had her uploaded to NamUs and Charlie Project and NCMEC, and they even did an age progression on NCMEC for Stacy Reddish. So it took 2-3 years for that to happen. Frustration, silence, questioning if anything's being done. And then, everything happens slowly at first and then suddenly all at once. And that's exactly how it happened with Stacy's case. The derivative of Stacy's case is because I leveraged this potential doe, and you'll know the name when I say it because I post her on Tuesdays. I believed it was Freeport Jane Doe, and Freeport Jane Doe last year was identified as Susan Mann. So these are the things that I happened to see by chance in a Facebook group, felt compelled to assist, shared, leveraged, demanded, fought, screamed, yelled, posted, for attention, got that support. But not only did we get what we accomplished for Stacy, which is getting her where she should have been 42 years ago on a database. And despite what Nassau County says, Freeport Jane Doe got her name back, and Susan Mann is now part of they were identified.
Families get some, not the result they want, but some sort of like the unknown part of the unknown goes away. Like part of the sitting and waiting every single day that
And
goes away. The grief isn't going to stop. The tragedy isn't going to stop.
Right.
But that burden of, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
when you
if they're still out there.
Right.
Yeah.
When you ask what anybody can do to help, like sharing a flyer is the most critical thing, because I read Stacey Reddish's her sister's first post on missing Black people's Facebook page. And I immediately copied the story, slightly reworded it, began posting her picture out there. So me observing this post and then sharing and creating a post and sharing it weekly, and then leveraging everything that I had, all that I had for this family, and getting to where we are now, not only with Stacey, but also with Susan Mann. That germinated out of just being in a group and resharing a
Right.
post.
And it leads to the unsolved too, where you're putting out, like, for people, like, this happened, there's been no movement on the case. If anybody has information, like, this is what we know. You're just putting out facts from the case, because cold cases still sit there. And it must be frustrating, because we have both seen such a movement in DNA testing and evidence and preserving, and there needs to be more laws to keep that on file. But just having the families contribute to the database, where we also know that these criminals have to continue to, so we can help there. Well, just for identifying factors, just having a database with the families in it to help identify and but everything costs money, everything. That seems to be the stall point for most of this. I'm so grateful that organization would volunteer to take the cost for collecting DNA from families. Like, if that happened a little more often, just think of how many more unidentified would get their names back.
Well, that's what it is. I as an advocate, you want to do everything on behalf of the family, but sometimes it's so much more effective for a family member to speak to somebody. So we could have forced the OCME to take it for free, but the better impact, the more committed response from the medical examiner's office was if he himself spoke with Stacey's sister, and she did. And I remember the day she was going there. We talked an hour beforehand, and I gave her all kinds of motivation. Of course, I gave her apologies that I'm not going to be there, but I believe in her ability to have the strength and the foundation to do this for her sister, and it was beautiful. And that's how you build up your own.
You gave her an opportunity to empower herself in this situation.
And I don't say I did it alone. Like I
get that, but still, what a beautiful situation.
Yeah, and it's a team win, but it in this case it was led by the family. In Stacey's case, she had to do most of the harder things. As an advocate, I'm not going to get the ear of the missing person squad. I don't like that squad too much to begin with anyway, but it's more impactful for a family member to speak with an investigator, and that's what we do.
Exactly. You put them their desires above all else, because that's the thing. It's their choice too. Some have moved on and don't want to do it, whether it's unidentified or not. Some do want to fight hard and need the help and assistance to do it. And I think the respect of giving them the choice and letting them be the ones to decide, like, we're gonna go forward. And so her speaking to the medical examiner herself, like, great, that's empowerment. She's in control of that situation. It can't be easy. But nobody ever wants to think about being in a position like that. If you have a missed loved one or someone who has gone through the tragedy of having something horrible happen to their loved ones and nothing being done about it, like, you can't imagine yourself in this position. Like, what would we do? We wouldn't. I myself, like, I covered this whole exposure to all kinds of scenarios in true crime, everything you can possibly think of. And if anything like that happened I wouldn't know what to do, where to go. We don't know how we're going to feel or where to proceed. So having advocates like yourself that can guide us if we choose, and that brings us to the organizations you're working with. Like besides you, are you more just centrally located here for this, or is this more national? Like I see a lot of stuff from different areas now.
So yeah, I certainly was all singular and independent at the beginning of this, but as you meet people, you help out, you get asked to help out or insight. I have the map, so people ask me to add some of their loved ones or cases that advocacy groups are working on to the map, because they see the value of the map, and from there you get connected to other advocates. One of the very first ones to connect with me was a woman named Jolyn Rice up in upstate New York on the Kristen O'Connell case. And she was probably the very first person that saw value in the work that I was doing, even though I couldn't see the clarity of it. She helped, illuminate that for me. So she was one of the first ones. And she had a website, Cold Case Advocacy, at that point. She's revamping a whole lot right now, but she was the first one that saw something in my work, and I appreciated that. Then came the two women that run the Alabama Cold Case Advocacy group. They're just amazing. They're literally amazing. And we worked on just getting some of their cases on the map. In fact, they used the map for one of their identifications of a Jane Doe in Alabama. So I thought that was so profound for me that the map had a solve of its own that I wasn't a part of. And it just helped to enhance the opportunity that the map is as a valuable resource.
Can you go into that for the audience? Like this map you're referring to, I know what it is. Like it's actually a linking of all of the communities on this and all of the cases.
And it's a lot of people have maps of missing, murdered, and unidentified. Mine is much more comprehensive and robust. Mine is every unidentified in the United States that's on NamUs or not on NamUs yet. They're on there, as are most of the states I've completed already for the missing that are on NamUs and Charlie Project, Doe Network, things like that. I'm currently working in California right now, but what's unique about my map is it's all chronological. So when you start off with the missing person's date last seen, you can scroll up into the future and look for unidentified locations, unidentified people of similar characteristics and details, and build a list of possibles. It's something that the public can do without being solely reliant on scheduling comparisons out of NamUs. So it's a hands-on thing. With NamUs, they schedule comparisons regularly. It happens automatically. With the map, it gives actionable power to a researcher, an advocate, a family member to go and look for a match to their own. For people like that are endeared to the unidentified, you start with the unidentified date that they're found, and you scroll back through time for missing people that might fit a possible link. The map right now has 21 solves on it. The one is the Alabama girls, but 21 solves, that's 21 families that have some sort of answers. They may not have all the understandings of the whys, but at least there's some path forward for them. And, that map has brought me, I've been connected with, I've been reached out by different law enforcement agencies to build a list of possibles for, an unresolved missing persons case that has gone cold. And I can build a list of, based on, particular set of parameters, I can build a list of minimum of a dozen people in a half an hour,
Wow.
so
Now,
it gives,
what is
it gives me a lead.
how you said that there's ones that aren't on NamUs that you have on your list as far as any of why wouldn't NamUs have them in there? Like how
Well, the way the process works is I think there's only 16, 17 states that are required to upload their information to the national database, which is NamUs. All the other states do not have to upload their cases to NamUs. And even the ones that are required to upload their information to NamUs, there's no accountability if they don't. So
okay, so wow, that's something that needs advocacy. Yeah.
Yep. That's one of your first big problems with the system.
Is there anything on that list that you talked about from your account that has resources for how we can push in the states that don't require it to get these people listed in what's already a good resource to help them save time and effort and a benefit to the families? I don't understand. A simple this is the data technology. We're in 2026. They push 3 buttons and enter some information and it's there. That should be mandatory. I'm blown away. Your answer, I'm stunned. Can you see? I'm stuttering. I did not know this.
I mean, it has me screaming at the wall sometimes. And it's frustrating. And like New York is one of the states that have to upload information. And there's time periods. There's 7 days, there's 30 days, there's 90 days. But there's no accountability if they don't. There's no ramifications for not doing it. I post on Tuesday. Huh?
I don't understand that with these states. Like,
exactly.
It would help with the legwork. It actually takes the burdens off of their actual offices to take this to everybody else in the cold case. It helps them. It is more productive. It saves them time, money, effort, and you're doing something really good. It seems like a no-brainer to me. When I tell you I'm sitting here with my mouth open, like, seriously.
I'm sitting here with a grin on my face because, I've been through all of that. But, when I started the map 4 years ago and realized this and encountered this, I was screaming. I'm screaming at the walls. I'm screaming at law enforcement investigators that I'm familiar with. I'm screaming at cops. I'm screaming at agencies. I'm screaming at NamUs. I'm screaming. But screaming, doesn't always work.
True.
So,
of course.
That's why, like, even in Suffolk County, New York, where Gilgo was tried and sentenced and so on, there's a case I post every Tuesday, Riverhead Jane Doe. She's still not in NamUs. And it's the last sentence in my tweet.
And you have a lot of information on her too, like information that is from them that would help them if it was in there, that it would correlate to other cases in other history and patterns. If I don't understand that with New York at all, because the Harriman case alone would teach them that just being able to tie these things together is necessary. They have a huge, can we agree between the two of us being East Coasters? There's a huge amount of unidentified here. Okay. A huge amount. The benefit of this in productivity alone, it makes absolutely no sense why not every single one is put in there. Right. What would possibly stop them from doing it?
I mean, there's a million of answers or excuses I've been giving. Lack of manpower, hours, payroll, time. Like I get it.
Which forensically would justify itself within the first year. With the amount of information that would automatically process without any of their detectives, law enforcement, cold case representatives touching a thing. Like, oh gosh, that conversation would have been hard to hear.
With Riverhead Jane Doe, she's unidentified. So her not being in the national database means that the DNA evidence from Riverhead Jane Doe cannot be compared on a national level
to any other case that we may know of an alleged criminal.
Now they may have. Suffolk County may have, farmed out the information to Othram or any other DNA lab, but there's no national level review unless they're reaching out to something particular. And I can't make it equal out.
No,
If the
because
evidence you have with Riverhead Jane Doe, put it on the database and, upload the DNA not only into LDIS, which is the Suffolk County lab, but the SDIS, which is the state lab. But once you get her into NamUs as an unidentified, she can go into CODIS, which is the unified DNA index system
right.
that has everything.
That does. Now, let me throw a little wrench in there. Like, would it help if this was a federal mandate?
Yeah.
Is anyone working on that? Because I don't know. I don't hear anything.
That fight waxes and wanes often. Todd Matthews, God rest his soul, was, a big proponent, and basically creator of NamUs. He's fought long and hard for NamUs to be unified at a federal level. It's federally supported, NamUs is, but federal requirements for all states. The Fed can't just force the states to do so.
But federal funding could expand to actually letting states get the information to them and letting them get it in there, getting the actual funds to do it. Yeah, right?
I wrote a Substack article on NamUs sometime last year, I think it was, where even the states that have opted in to upload to NamUs and they're not doing it for whatever reason, they should be held accountable and have potential federal grants withheld. So whether it's highways or infrastructure, make it accountable. That if you are a part of uploading into NamUs and supporting the NamUs database, then you have to follow the requirements. You can't just do it when you want to upload into NamUs. You got to do it all the time. So, the fact that I've brought as much attention to Riverhead Jane Doe in the last few years and she's still not in NamUs is very frustrating to me. I filed Freedom of Information requests and I got some answers. And I think people that had initially attempted to foil for Riverhead Jane Doe were submitting to the wrong agency. I submitted to a different agency and I got a response saying that it was part of an open investigation with the county police. So that was a step forward. But she's still not in NamUs and there could be reasons for that. Maybe they have identified her and just not released it publicly and they're looking to build the case. I can understand all of that, but those two lines can be mutually exclusive. So
if they could not reach a next of kin, would that prevent it?
The identification? Not necessarily, because it depends on how cold or old the case is. If they have an identification and they cannot link to any current relatives, they could go forward and announce it anyway.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm just baffled that there's actually cases that you have a system that actually works and actually makes it easier to tie things together and get information that links things together. Something happens on this end of the country and you know about it all the way over here in a case. It gets linked together. It can help, especially with the missing. Somebody, the family here on the East Coast hasn't heard from somebody in 20 years, but there's information in the database that they got arrested for shoplifting 5 years ago in California. That at least tells the people that she was alive then, or he or she was alive then. It's important. It's a productive system that actually works in the free flow of information, which baffles me with not a lot of hands on it all the time. A lot of it is automatic.
Yeah, and it is. And in a way, it could be a sort of respite for an investigator to just upload the information into NamUs and move on to another case while NamUs does its thing over the course of a year or two. So there's benefits. There's nothing but benefits to
Exactly. It's worth that time to do it, and it shouldn't be an automatic process before something gets to be a cold case, to tell you the truth. Like, that happens. Like, we need a better system, I'm sure. And I guess we could expand on that, but that would probably take us like all day. But definitely.
Yeah, that would be a conversation that I would love to do with also an incredible researcher and advocate, Dana Pohl. She is sort of my twin when it comes to the unidentified. We think alike. We get angry at the same things. Dana and I plan to talk for 15 minutes, and it's like 3-4 hours later we get off the phone. And she's so well versed in everything, and that could be a future conversation. I know Dana would absolutely appreciate doing it too. So
hey, I welcome you both. My platform is open to you, Ralph, for any of this. I think it's important. I've stressed that to you privately before all of this. I have no other goal but to spread the information and to help with the advocacy and to put your work out there so that people know how they can help you with it. And Dana Pohl is more than welcome to also give me information to do that. I would love to. And I think it's a valid conversation on expanding this nationally a little easier to make it more productive in what changes in legislation. The law is tough. We all know it's a slow process. But I have to say, I was impressed with the movement of getting it through both the Assembly to the committees for the Assembly and the Senate. That takes the bolstering of people behind it to get somebody to take notice, to bring it there and advocate for it. Like, you can't throw something into committee. Like, you need a senator and an assemblyman behind it. And
it's been there. It's been back and forth for a couple of years, but we have a much more concentrated plan. And now that the Gilgo case is, for the most part completed, the families themselves can, focus some attention on this, and they can use their voices. For once, I don't have to be the one out there. Nobody hears the message better unless it comes from a family member. They're just the most impactful people to talk about certain things.
And that's important in the support of the community for the family members now, to get behind these bills and to help push it, get it out there, let people know about it. Like you said, get that from your list, which I'll be putting below, like how to contact your local representatives, how to get it forward. Every single email, every single phone call, every single, shall I say, retweet or re-X. How do you say that? Repost?
I say it's repost. Twitter. Yeah,
it's always Twitter, right? It's always going to be the word. I can't. I can't. But every sharing of the information, every single piece of that matters a lot. Don't think it's inconsequential. We all can't be you, Raul. You're so diligent and precise and just empathetic and informative and just, I have to ask you, are you a one-man team? The amount of productivity that you do in a week is astounding.
It's catching up to me. I'm tired. I get more and more tired as the weeks and months go by. But it's a commitment. It's a commitment to myself. It's a commitment to, a missing person or their family, to the unidentified, and then just a commitment to fellow advocates. Like, I respect the cases that are dear to them, and they become dear to me. It's just that's what I mean when I sort of shrink away from the true crime community into a more particular community of
the advocacy, right? I see that with you, with more of those doing similar work as yourself that are growing, or and have a platform, and actually you guys all sharing together, and that's what I want to encourage. Like, getting that list together of others throughout the country that are doing it for other states besides what I see here that you're doing for the East Coast for us. It's particularly New York.
I do a lot of supportive work for advocates on their own agendas, which is why I'm in California right now. I'm working on the map in California because I want to get that. California has one of the most people on the map. It's got almost 3,840 people on it that are missing. So I'm working on getting that in so I can assist an advocate out there in what they're doing and use the map towards identifying possibles and patterns and geographic markers, things like that. So there's a lot of nuance that this simple map that's become everything to my life.
And this map is for the unidentified and the missing, the one that we're speaking to, the NEMIS. Okay. Is there a map kind of nationally, or at least like for our area, that's more for the unsolved? Do they have like a similar?
So in my naive envision 4 years ago when I started it, it was, I'm going to ultimately get all the unidentified on, and then all the missing, and then all the unresolved cases. But it's too big of a task. So as I come across unresolved, I'll add them in. I allow the process just to happen organically. But I my daily routine begins at like 5:30 a.m. every day, and I catch up on what name is updated the day before. And then whatever state that I'm working on, I try to devote at least 2 hours to adding in that state's missing, since I already have the unidentified all on. So that's the initial morning routine, which has tertiary tasks that I do. At the same time as running the map, I also run an unidentified tattoo database. So there's that in tandem with it. And then I have several other private maps that are either for particular cold case advocacy groups. I was asked to do the map for the BTK cold case task force a few years ago, which I gave a map to Carrie to hand off, and I built that spreadsheet and list up. So that's on file. Other maps that I'm currently working on that are not public yet at the moment is a sex worker map of missing, murdered, and unidentified sex workers, where you could identify an unidentified candidate as a possible sex worker. We put that in. Are
you able to work with the federal VICAP? Like, that's the only database I know that's out there for these kind of unsolved crimes, violent crimes.
No, so I sort of began the sex worker angle after the guilty plea, when a New York City or New York area collective group of sex workers had reached out to the families, and they were going to do a vigil in New York City. And I went to that vigil, and I love these people. They are so unified and passionate and committed. And we've been in constant communication and supportive of each other's work and tweets and conversations and action planning. And that group came out to Suffolk County on sentencing day to show their support. And we have plans over the next several months that we're going to really consolidate and work on. So, there's a lot of other things that I incorporate in a day, in a week. Why I'm so excited.
I don't know how you find the time. I really don't.
All of the task-driven part of my life, and it's so important to me, is less important than maintaining the friendships with some of the family members that I have, whether it's Gilgo or Dawn's case or some of the other cases that I advocate for. It's checking in with them and having regular conversations, whether it's about the case or whether it's about a holiday barbecue that they're doing. I want to hear what happened. Give me the family drama. Give me the
I
scoop.
know. I can see that
You
you are
become embedded.
fueled.
Yeah, you become close to them, and a lot of people say don't get too close to family members, and knowing some of the family members, it's as much of a burden as it is a blessing, but blessing wins out a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more than the burden, because sometimes you get the frustrated family member, you get the family member that needs to
Mm-hmm.
scream for a little bit and needs to curse at
Right.
somebody, and they need to just fight. And so, okay, yell at me, like take it out on me, and then we'll work together on what's next. So you become a sounding board for ideas. You become a sounding board for frustration and stress when they can't scream at law enforcement and they can't just
Mm-hmm.
pick up a mic and open up a YouTube channel and start screaming. It's counterproductive.
Right.
So you become that close to them, and it's a responsibility I still embrace, because part of my evolution out of Catch LISK into whatever it will be is to make those friendships more of a priority than anything else, and I work towards that, because I'm at the same time just quiet and inclusive. I'll sit on my sofa all day and work on the map or research whatever I'm doing. But I make a point of reaching out and responding and interacting, because it is important.
I can see that fuels you. Like that's keeping your tank fueled, keeping you going. Like that connection with them and knowing how much that matters to them, because you see the difference with them. You see the result with the families right away. So I admire that. A good name would be like, Catch LISK and all the others. Like just add a little bit on the other, and all the others. Like no,
I like that.
Or Catch LISK, one down and more to go. But Catch LISK, don't change that part. You are well known. Like
I don't
everything.
I don't think I can change it. It would.
You are so well branded with it. We all know you. Like I'm not speaking for the world here, but I'm kind of speaking for the world. Like that's how we identify you. Yeah. And
I knew that I couldn't. And I spent weeks, and I had help. I had other families of other cases and throwing me ideas and suggestions. And we all just agreed that just leave it at Catch LISK until something comes out of the heavens saying this is the absolute way to go. That is so profound that then we'll see. But, I on certain platforms, I keep the Catch LISK logo still on. But with Gilgo committee and the law that we want to push, I'm using that as an icon, as an avatar to just, keep the word Gilgo to draw attention and leverage it in a positive way now, instead of people seeing Gilgo and thinking serial killer.
There's so much more still to it, because yes, we have the convictions. We have 8, right? Identified and closed. Okay. But we can't deny there's more. We can't deny that it's a field of so many more there, that it's just like, because it's not tied in to this particular, accused and convicted person.
Well, it's funny. A week after the arrest, a member of law enforcement called me up and said, you need to change your name. What are you going to change it to? Caught LISK? I'm like, no, because that implies I caught him, which I did not. But LISK is caught. Time to move on. I'm like, yeah, no, because we don't know how many he killed.
Yeah, I would ask him, are you saying that like every single remains that you found during that investigation and all over the area have been identified? No. And this man was around for a very long time, and we now have history, how far back he went. Are you saying that's the only one he did in 1997, the only one he did in 1993? Are you saying that he was inactive for all this other time in between? Law enforcement can't say that.
Right.
Maybe you could change it to Catch LISK thoroughly. There you go.
Oh, I like that too.
There you go. Yeah, feel free to use any of those. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you know, because it's still catch LISK, because, you know, it's not catch Rex Harriman. Let's just say that. Okay.
Right.
It's not one unidentified body. It's not one area of that dumping ground. It's not, you know, there's still more. There's still so much more to go. I guess like they were just feeling their oats, like we got them, you know, and it's like, yeah, but nobody's work is done yet. Nobody's work is done yet.
For real.
Yeah.
And may not ever be.
Yeah. And that's the sad part. That's what makes me so astounded by the amount of work that you do, that you put out every day, because it is such a volume that I mean, I can't even retweet all of it, like, you know, so to tell you, but the amount that you get out there just shows us that it's not done. Like, none of this is actually, you know, there's so much more to it. It's just so much of a bigger picture than what they want to narrow it down to. Although I give them their win. Proud of the commission. I'm proud of the changes they made. I'm proud that they picked up the ball and they ran forward and they did a different type of task force. So I'm happy about all of that. But to think that it's case closed on this part. Like,
right.
It's still their territory. There's still more to go. Yeah.
There's more to go. And that's fine. Yeah. But we'll get there, you know, piecemeal, little by little, case by case, person by person. We'll give back the names to the unidentified, and we'll hope to bring justice to all those that are still unresolved. So
there are other companies out there announcing through DNA that they're using the same terminology that you do, that we have brought home so-and-so. Like, once that body through DNA or whatever evidence gets identified, so that you bring them home to the families. It's a beautiful way to put it. Like, I want to continue to use it too and retweet those things. So I hope you'll share with me, like, that I can share links of other organizations that people can also retweet that will help you with this, and especially the identifying of the unidentified in this day and age in 2026 is definitely just mind-boggling with all of the new technology and the evidence we have. We just have to get to it. But then again, I look at all of the DNA that's not tested in our country already, and the backlogs that are here.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Yeah. But I hope that you'll come back, Raul, because this is such a huge topic. It's a huge topic. And anytime you want to address any part of it, I offer you the space, you know, when you have the time. I know you don't. So I'm very honored you took the time.
I will make the time. I think it's important to be out there and talk about the things that are important to talk about, not the salaciousness of things. It can come out as part of the conversation, but the conversation has got to be about something more definable. For me, I look at it like a conversation's got to not only be productive, it has to produce results of some sort, whether it's understanding of a case or a person, or understanding the map a little bit more, or understanding the process, understanding what to do if your loved one goes missing or is an unresolved cold case. Like, these are a lot of the conversations that I make time to have. And because I think it's important. And I think there's incredible advocates out there that are more impactful than what I do, and have less of a voice. And I want to fight to sort of equal that and give them, amplify,
give them their voices. Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's important. Everybody does something for a family member, and that's the most beautiful thing. But how do we collectively amplify that and impact change? And not only just the change in the one particular victim, but how do we correct things that need to be corrected, whether it's a law or a mandate or a process. Like, all of those things, it's more than just a ripple in a pond. It could be a ripple in an ocean if we do it the right way.
Not just for those that are going through it now, but for any of us that may go through it in the future. We never know. And to help remove, I think this is what you're saying, remove those obstacles to actually getting a process that can be productive for everybody, to make that process from the start better for everyone involved, including law enforcement. So we don't have 30-year-old cases, 40-year-old cases sitting on the books, you know.
Exactly.
If we improve the process from the start for everyone involved, it can only be a win for all of them, you know. But I know, you know, rose-colored glasses that I wear that everybody says, like, that's my perfect world I like to see. I know it's not the one we live in, but that doesn't mean I can't strive for that vision.
Exactly.
Like, all
And
the
that's,
time.
I mean, I was the same way in the beginning when I started. It's like, we should be doing this. Why aren't we doing this? We need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
To now
Yeah.
being, all right, how do I leverage things to make a little bit of this happen? You know, I still have the whole, you know, Norma Ray inside of me going, fight, fight, fight. Like, we got to do this. But I'm a wiser person now as an advocate. And it's, how do we do it strategically? When do we amplify our voices? When do we magnify the output of information? So it has to be more strategic now to get the right ears listening.
Exactly. That is something I really want to talk to you about. Like, how do you get through the process? How do you start it? And we could do this on, if you'll come back, this would definitely be something I think people would be interested in. Not only how you get through that process, what do you do about the resistors? How do you not spend time on the people that are fighting you on it? Like, how you actually get through what I see that goes on out there and actually get people to join you and actually be more productive about how we're all handling this. Like,
I mean, there's always going to be detractors. There's always going to be trolls. There's always going to be some naysayer that would rather, you know, invest 15 minutes critiquing my grammar or sentence structure.
Yes.
And any of the substance of what I'm putting out there. So, you know, to people like that, I see that their obsession is me and not what I'm saying. So I can't help people like that. And
it happens everywhere. I feel you. Like, when they totally miss the intent.
Yeah, I've tried to explain and have a conversation with them, but that's not their intent. Their intent is to be irreverent and to bring ruckus and distraction. And the ultimately powerful thing I can do is give them no oxygen. But, you know,
there's power in that. I have found there's a lot of power in that. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to fight back, and you know, I have a very long memory, and I have the Google Drive 2 terabyte plan, so I can just screenshot and store it away for use at a later date, which I do because I can be passive aggressive.
You know what? You know, that's just human nature. I can't fault you on that. I definitely have that. I definitely have to go buy a new pair of petty pants here and there. You know, and it's not just an East Coast thing. We can tell everybody together, right? Like this, no, this national people, everybody does it. Like, but
you know, but all of that helps build my own character. You know, but you're physically affected by it. You're emotionally affected by it, and you know, people will put out outrageously false stories about somebody. You know, denigrate a victim and you know, just terrible things. But everything that I've gone through is nothing compared to what a family member has gone through. Like, it's just
that's
not
grounding. Yeah.
You know?
That is so grounding of you, because like you keep your focus on, like, it's horrible what I'm going through, and it physically, I mean, I understand it physically does affect you when you have people coming like that, and people get in the way of the good work or the message, or just totally rewriting history and misinterpreting, and, you know, just only putting the bad out there. But you balance it with the good. You get that good feeling when you get to speak with those family members and they understand where you're coming from, and you just keep going. You keep refueling each other's tanks back and forth. And
that is true. And you can't forget about that, because at times when I had attacks at me, the first person to reach out to me is a family member going, I support you. This is nonsense. And, you know, I may not be able to say it publicly, but I want you to know personally that I stand with you. And how incredible is that for me, you know, like
that is incredible. It matters so much more, I think, sometimes than public. Like it's easy to go and like answer a tweet or something. Well, for them to actually come to you personally and say, this is how I feel about you and what you're doing for me is so much more than
yeah. And I always say, you know, to some of these detractors, it's, you know, some people can, and then they will do, and other people can't, so they try to take it apart. And that's fine. You know, I've had a family member tell me that when it came to Gilgo, I'm the public face of the case, which I shied away from immediately. Like, that's a burden. I don't want that. But the reality is in the LISK space, there's been no one that can articulate facts the way I can. Like, I know I'm an expert in this, which I hate that title because I never lost a family member to violent crime, so I'm not an expert. I may know facts and I may know dates and I may know a lot of things, but I don't know what they went through, so I'm never going to be an expert. But I can absolutely strengthen my own resolve knowing I have the support of family members. And
that you're so well informed that you have the information to back up. Maybe you don't want to call yourself an expert, but you are one well-informed advocate.
You have to be.
For them, yes.
They deserve all of that. Right. That's always my response to them. You deserve all of that and more.
I just want others to join you in it. I want to just start a fundraiser to get you an assistant, like right now. Like, but I know the detractors. I know what would happen. So no, I'm not actually going to do that, people, because I wouldn't do that to him.
It would mean that I'd have to share passwords, and I'm uncomfortable with.
I hear that. I definitely hear that. Sometimes being a one-person team is the best aspect with that kind of stuff. It is private information. It is.
Well, you know, I look at the map. People offer to help me on the map all the time, and I'm like, yeah, it would expedite things. It would speed things up, but it wouldn't be me learning about each person I put on the map. And it's got to be about quality and not, you know, reaching certain thresholds. And not to say that someone else can do it, but I have an obligation to myself that I made to every person I put on that map is to read as much as is available about their case before I move on to the next.
Something to look into. Hopefully we can find you somebody that can help write the programs where you still are in control with what gets in the map, but they can put it into an automated process that people put the information in, you screen it running, and then you just have to push a button to get it there.
There are some bigger...
And you still have control.
Yeah, there's bigger plans in the works. I just, don't have the bandwidth to devote entirely to that, and there are other people doing it on my behalf. But there are plans to do something more comprehensive with the map.
That would be amazing.
I'm not able to really even share what it could truly look like. I've been provided a whole lot of insight and offers about it, and I just need to get through certain things before.
Well, I just hope that your example of what the map can actually do will help motivate a more productive national map to begin with, where you don't have to spend your resources. You're just providing information to get it there, which is what you do regularly anyway. Why should you be putting out all the resources for a map that should be a national, federally funded thing anyway? Like, you know, not to take your glory away, because you're doing an excellent job. I think it's the example.
You look at independent advocacy outlets like Charlie Project, let's say, you know, they go nonprofit, and then they are, you know, basically nationally recognized. You look at the Doe Network, the same thing. And I'm not saying I'm considering going nonprofit, although there are iterations of that for the future. But that's what the map could be in this space. It could be a definitive location as intuitive to go to as Charlie Project is for me. Aside from NamUs, it's Charlie Project, the Doe Network, and those outlets that I pull information from and add them to the map itself could be that at that level. So, I've created certain goalposts I want to get to before I pause on map development and focus on enhancing the platform. Plus, I have to ethically get myself prepared for that. And right now, it's still, I'm very ethically constrained, just as a matter of course for myself. So I do things that most people would say are counterproductive, but I sleep good at night because of it. I sleep exhaustedly at night because of it, but I sleep well at night knowing that nothing conflicts with, what I believe should be the way to go.
Right. That speaks volumes, because as you grow, people don't realize that, like, keeping that foundation and your focus on actually why you're doing this and what is the most important part of it to you and where you actually want to see it go is one of the hardest parts when it's growing and expanding, and it looks like, oh yeah, you're doing so well, but things start to go a little this way or that way.
Yep.
I hear you on that, because that can be one of the difficult challenges, but I have great admiration that your focus is not waned from day one from advocacy for the families and the victims themselves, in those voices, those unidentified that don't have a voice.
Yep.
Like, it has not waned. The sensationalism, the Harriman case, getting your name out there, growing so much, getting interviews, all of that. None of that doesn't seem to faze you, because the focus is still, I would say 70% of this conversation we've had was focused on the families and the victims every chance that it could come in. And that's admirable. And that means your mission is still from day one the same. That's what we want to help promote for you and get out there and get you some help in getting that information out there.
Thank you.
I will be listing all of your links, but I do hope you come back when you have time. I know how busy you are.
I'd love to. I can see, conversation on like the unidentified and DNA labs with Dana Pohl. I love that idea. Dana and I have been wanting to do it together because our conversations just go on forever. And her husband.
I'll tell you, you can tell Dana, my platforms, your platforms, you guys together. You want to do it together? You want to do whatever? Not that I want to keep you from the rest of the world doing this stuff. I mean, God forbid if CBS or ABC wants to grab you, go for it.
Of course.
I'm still a little bear,
No, that's all good. But, high tide lifts all boats. So, when we create our own high tide of ethical advocates and people that want to tell these stories, then it's a win for all of us, as long as it's done right, which is, important to me. But then I can also see a follow-up visit, certainly with me alone, but possibly with some of the Gilgo families as we relaunch the legislative session.
Absolutely. Updates on the legislations for sure. Anytime you want to come, if you've got a push or a project in regards to that, if it takes just 15 minutes, whatever, we can do like whatever you want, because I am going to be all over that for sure. That needs to happen. That needs to happen.
We all are, the committee, we call ourselves the committee. Each committee member, we have action plans, and some will do shared interviews. Some will go on certain outlets and other formats, and then there'll be in-person events that are on the horizon. So there's a lot of advocacy for this in January and throughout the January to June session. So more to come on all of that, but I appreciate the
absolutely
get that message out.
I really would be happy to do it, because it's a very important message, like we talked about from the start. Main purpose for this whole thing, get the message out there to help advocate for the families and the victims themselves. So
absolutely. And imagine that as a storyline of a newbie advocate coming into a space and learning and caring and sharing, and then see it through court hearings, see it through a conviction, and then staying with it for the next path that's just as hard, you know?
So many people are not going to be talking about it anymore. All of the sensationalism of the case is gone.
Yep.
For me, the issues that became part of it are still there. And so they still need to be, the spotlight still needs to be there, and there still needs to be a push. And I know some people are going to say, oh, yeah, you know, it's just a matter of like, you know, because it's a YouTube channel or it's a different kind of platform, it's all about this or that. But it's really not.
Well, I mean,
listen to the like it's the message, you know, it's
exactly that. And like Julie Murray, the sister of missing woman Maura Murray, when she was asked, how do you know who cares? And her answer was, when all the hype has gone away, they're still there. Like, they still care. They're still supportive. They're still present. And that is very, very much how I feel when it comes to the Gilgo families.
Even with anything where families are dealing with grief or they're dealing with tragedies in their lives, it's like, you know, you take that breath and you like, who's still there a year later? Like, who's still checking in? Like, who's still in that circle when it got like so hard and so dark and the road had nothing but obstacles? Like, who actually is still there? Because like everybody will want to be there when it's all sunshine and roses at the end or for the pot of gold. Well, who's actually there, you know, during the process?
Indeed.
And I am sorry to hear about the loss of your brother. Like, I know that I lost a little brother, but I understand that process of like, who's still there when you get through like all of that, you know. That resonated with me. Thank you for sharing your personal stories and actually how you came to do this. I'm going to let you go now and hope that you'll come back soon. Okay. And, or not, you know, not tomorrow or the next day, because you're believe me, I know how busy you are. I am just honored you took the time, because I think your message is important, and I would be proud and honored to keep putting it out there as much as I can. So I'll be retweeting you until my fingers fall off. Okay.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Bye now.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Raul, for joining me in a very interesting conversation. And I hope you all learned a little more about Raul Montero's mission, Catch LISK, and some of the other organizations that are helping with the unnamed, the missing, and the unsolved. Please check out the links below on how to contact Catch LISK, all of the things they're working on, the map, NamUs, and some of the other organizations, and especially for new legislation in New York for the Son of Sam law, which is at the forefront right now, based on things that have happened in the Harriman case, and also for all the families of the victims. Thank you for listening. We'll see you again soon. In the meantime, be well. Bear out.